The Illinois Historic Preservation Agency welcomes you to the David Davis Mansion, an example of late 19th century domestic architecture built between 1870 and 1872 for U.S. Supreme Court Justice David Davis and his wife Sarah. The history of the mansion is well documented by an extensive body of information that includes the house and grounds, the architect's original drawings, family artifacts, historic photographs, and over 19,000 documents which comprise the Davis family papers. Particularly significant are the letters exchanged between Sarah and David Davis and Sarah's letters to her family. David Davis was born in Maryland on March 9, 1815, less than 8 months after the death of his father, for whom he was named. At his father's death, David's mother, Ann Mercer Davis, returned to her family's Maryland plantation, The Rounds, where David was born and where he spent his earliest years. At the age of 18, David graduated from Kenyon College in Ohio and traveled to Lenox, Massachusetts to apprentice as a law clerk. During his 2-year apprenticeship, he met and fell in love with Sarah Woodruff Walker, the bright, attractive daughter of Lucy Adam Walker and William Perrin Walker, judge of probate for Berkshire County. One of 9 children, Sarah was born in Lenox in 1814 and educated at the Hartford Female Seminary in Connecticut. David Davis proposed to Sarah in 1835, but her father refused David's request for a lengthy engagement, offering instead this hope for the future.
If you succeed in business, as you expect and have reason to believe, and at the end of 3 or 4 years you and Sarah should have the same attachment for each other as it now seems you have, there would be no objection to your marriage.
David agreed and left to seek his fortune on what was then the western frontier, settling first in Pekin, Illinois, where he opened a law office, and then in Bloomington, where he purchased the legal practice of one of the area's earliest pioneers, Jesse Fell. In 1838, David returned to Massachusetts to marry Sarah.
3 years have elapsed, and amid the changes of the world, Sarah and I have kept faith to each other. I loved her then, and I love her still, with an ardent desire to share with her my fortunes and to devote myself to the promotion of her happiness. The dearest wish of my heart has been to be able to marry her, and to the attainment of that wish all my energies have been devoted.
Having succeeded in establishing himself financially, David was now able to offer Sarah an income and to build for her a house on Grove Street in Bloomington, which earned the approval of his prospective father-in-law.
I assure you it is gratifying to learn that the folly of building large houses, which has nearly ruined New England, does not prevail in Illinois.
Judge Walker gave his consent, and the couple were married on October 30th, 1838. After their wedding, David and Sarah traveled by stagecoach to visit relatives along the East Coast, planning to secure passage on a steamboat for the journey down the Ohio, up the Mississippi, and along the Illinois rivers to Pekin. Finding the Ohio too low to navigate, they were forced to travel overland, first by swaying hack and then by stagecoach.
To a lady in the winter, a journey by land through Ohio and Indiana is excessively unpleasant. Sarah, however, bore it like a heroine. She never complained and was uniformly in good spirits.
Bloomington was a tiny village of about 450 people on the Illinois frontier when David Davis brought his bride here in 1839. She brought with her the expectations of an Easterner, accustomed to an urban way of life.
Everyone here works for himself if he works at all. This manner of living renders one very independent. You will be surprised when I tell you that I have not had a new dress since we came here. Well, you can't get any fancy article here. Not ribbon or blonde or flowers. No good shoes.
During the course of her marriage, Sarah gave birth to 7 children, only 2 of whom survived to adulthood, George Perrin Davis and Sarah Worthington Davis, known as Sally. Davis did well as an attorney, spending his time primarily outside the courtroom in such work as drawing deeds and negotiating deals for his clients. It was at this time that he began investing in land, laying the foundation for what would eventually become a considerable fortune. In one such deal in 1843, he acquired from Jesse Fell a 190-acre farm, along with a 1.5-story frame house on what is now the site of the David Davis Mansion. A decade later, as he became more prosperous, Davis added a two-story Greek Revival I house along the front of the original Fell home. In 1839, Davis came into contact with another young Illinois lawyer, Abraham Lincoln. Both men were Whigs, political followers of Henry Clay, whose picture, an 1843 lithograph, still hangs in the mansion's sitting room. After an unsuccessful campaign attempt for the state legislature, Davis summed up his lack of desire for future political office.
If I had an ambitious wife, I might set about planning the ways and means to accomplish political distinction, but instead of adding fuel to the flame, she throws cold water upon it, and I love her too well to thwart her view long.
To expand his law practice, Davis rode the 8th Judicial Circuit, first as a lawyer and later as its judge. Each spring and fall, Davis and a group of lawyers that included Lincoln made the 3-month tour of the 14 county courthouses that comprised the Central Illinois Circuit. On the circuit, politics, law, and friendship intermingled. Davis and Lincoln became close friends, and Davis promoted Lincoln's political career whenever possible, even serving as his campaign manager when Lincoln ran for the presidency in 1860. 2 years later, Davis was appointed by Lincoln to the United States Supreme Court, where he served for 15 years. During the years 1840 to 1870, America experienced industrial growth of unprecedented magnitude. The creation of an extensive railroad network in the United States and the growth of a large pool of immigrant labor significantly altered life on the frontier in Bloomington. The increase in population and the wealth generated by the Industrial Revolution created clear-cut social divisions, which were expressed in the building of large, ornate homes by many of Bloomington's prominent families. It was a social transformation which Sarah commented upon in several of her letters to David.
Mr. Robinson spent the afternoon at home. His furnace heats the house nicely. I went in the cellar and saw the drying room, which is very nice for bad weather. Mr. Flagg's new house looms up grandly, and Fanny says seems nearer every day. Dr. Wakefield is not yet in his house.
Because of their wealth and pioneering status, the Davis family belonged to this highest level of Bloomington society, yet they continued to occupy their old farmhouse. Judge Davis hired French-born architect Alfred H. Piquenard to design for Sarah a comfortable, convenient, and modern home appropriate to the Davises' wealth and social standing. Piquenard, whose designs were fashionable in the 1870s, counted among his Central Illinois commissions the current Illinois State Capitol, the McLean County Courthouse, destroyed by fire in 1900, and Belmont, the first residence of George Perrin Davis. Sarah and her son George were actively involved in the mansion's creation, all the more so because the judge was away in Washington for much of the year. George's letters to his father and to the architect reflect his role in handling the judge's business affairs back in Bloomington. Sarah's role was more subtle, but all the greater because she did much to shape the mansion's decor, and hence its ultimate cost, estimated to have been $75,000.
Mr. Becker is anxious to paint the walls of the chambers in our new house. I asked him to make an estimate of the cost. For the 4 chambers in plain durable oil colors, he will charge $227. The house has already cost so much that I'm hesitating what to do.
It took 2 years to build the mansion, and when completed in 1872, it became the centerpiece of a large suburban estate at the edge of Bloomington. The mansion's woodhouse, constructed at the same time, was also designed by architect Piquenard and stood as an important visual transition between the house and service areas of the estate. The building's transitional role can be seen in the way that Piquenard disguised its utilitarian functions through the use of architectural details similar to those of the mansion. 2 privies and a wood storage area were camouflaged behind Milwaukee cream brick, pedimented gables, bullseye windows, and corner coining.
I am much pleased with our new woodhouse, which goes on rapidly to completion. It is the prettiest building of the kind I ever saw.
When the mansion and woodhouse were nearly completed, Sarah turned her attention to the landscaping of the grounds, which included the outer grounds, the barnyard, clover lawn, and the upper and lower gardens. In the barnyard, as it exists today, two frame outbuildings, the barn stable and carriage house, remain from the old Davis farmstead, suggesting the almost rural setting in which the mansion originally functioned. A third remaining building, the foaling shed, was evidently built at the time of the mansion's construction. Other structures, a hog pen, corn crib, hen house, animal pens, and windmill, were torn down when the estate was subdivided into residential lots in 1945 and again in 1960. The lower garden, a vegetable, small fruit, and orchard area, was already in existence when the house was built, but the ornamental upper garden, intended for decoration and flower cutting, was Sarah's special creation.
I cultivate flowers to help me bear the fatigue and labor of life, and they rest me more than anything, and put new life in me.
Today, the upper garden, located in what is now the southeast corner of the property, is the only surviving reminder of the gardens and orchards that once filled the spacious grounds. Sarah set the tone for life at the mansion. As the wife of a prosperous landowner, she entertained or called upon friends and traveled frequently, either as a tourist or to visit the judge and other family members in the East. But she was also the overseer of a large estate, actively supervising a staff of full-time servants, several of whom occupied second-floor bedrooms in the mansion's servants' wing. One of the men servants, Willie Fitzgerald, served as a carriage driver and helped with the maintenance of the house, while there were usually two women, a cook and a maid-of-all-work, who prepared and served the meals and did the housework. Additional domestic chores, such as laundry, sewing, and soap-making, were contracted out to various domestics who did not permanently reside in the mansion. Such a large estate also required hired hands, who cared for the gardens and livestock and farmed on a tenant basis. Pequenar, designed for Judge Davis a home that was in many ways typical of the opulent residences built for wealthy Americans in the post-Civil War era. Victorian architects like Pequenar tried to incorporate in their designs a variety of textures and shapes, as well as naturalistic themes, giving their buildings a richly ornate appearance and an asymmetrical profile. Diverse window styles contribute to that variety, as do the differing designs of the mansion's decorative ironwork. 7 chimneys of varying sizes and shapes give the mansion's roofline an irregular or picturesque silhouette, much valued by late 19th century architects and their clients. Projecting bays also contribute to the mansion's asymmetry, while the decorative arts in the mansion's interior echo the themes of variety, asymmetry, and love of nature. While it represented the architecture of the period, the mansion was also a catalog of 19th century manufactured products, technological advances, and modern conveniences. Plumbing, lighting, and heating systems installed in the mansion in the 1870s were new advances for their time. The original heating system, supplied by A.L. Winnie & Company of Chicago, used low-pressure steam with one pipe leading to each radiator. An 1872 Winnie catalog, found in the Davis family papers, describes the way in which this system typically functioned. In the basement, on the right, is the steam generator or boiler. The brick enclosure is partially broken down so as to show the position of the section and also of the stack of radiators above the boiler. The heating surface of the boiler and of the stack of radiators over the boiler warms the room over the boiler room and the chamber in the second story. The tin flue that carries the warm air to the second story is shown by the dotted lines on the sidewall of the sitting room. The parlor is warmed by a stack of our Gold's patent radiators, suspended from the joist at the ceiling in the room below and neatly encased with narrow ceiling boards lined with tin. The hall is also warmed by a stack of Gold's patent radiators. The boudoir, off the second-story hall, is warmed by a direct radiator. Today, what remains of the Winnie system are the radiator in the master bathroom on the first floor and the floor registers. The original under-the-floor radiators and their wooden enclosures were removed in the early 1960s. The fixtures and hardware accompanying these systems were high-quality items available for purchase in any major city at that time. The functioning of these systems and the mansion's other appointments are directly related to the conveniences of today and represent the beginnings of modern domestic life. Sarah Davis died in 1879, and the judge's death in 1886 left the home in the hands of their son, George Perrin Davis, and his wife, Ella. George's son, David Davis III, and his wife, Edith, were the last generation of the Davis family to occupy the mansion. When Edith died in 1959, David Davis IV and his nieces donated the building and its site to the state of Illinois. In 1985, the newly created Illinois Historic Preservation Agency began administering the site and planning for the mansion's restoration. The restoration project, completed in 3 stages between 1985 and 1992, involved extensive research, the publication of a historic structures report outlining the work that needed to be done, renovation of the carriage barn and woodhouse, installation of new heating, cooling, and security systems, and the almost complete restoration of the mansion's interior and exterior. A large corps of volunteers enables the agency to maintain the site and open it to the public. The volunteers join with the agency in welcoming you to the site and in hoping that your visit is a pleasant one. As you make your way up to the house, we encourage you to note the architectural details and the outbuildings described in this presentation. Once inside the house, we ask that you refrain from touching the furnishings, wall decorations, or woodwork, so that we may preserve the David Davis Mansion for the benefit of future generations.